How is India outsmarting Trump's tariff with Swadeshi 2.0?
उन चीजों को खरीदेंगे जिसे बनाने में किसी न किसी भारतीय का पसीना बहा है.
How is this going to affect domestic economy and how it is going to change our standing in the global order? When global powers are engaged in tariff wars, India has decided to play with strategic restraint. Here, PM Modi has called in the initiative and more push for vocal for local, and this initiative is a three-pronged strategy where we see the economics, political as well as diplomatic angle all rolled into one. Hello everyone, welcome to Vajiram and Ravi's Flash News. My name is Shubhangi Singh and today we are going to talk about that how when Donald Trump went ahead and slapped us with a 25% tariff and a penalty, as well as went ahead and called us a dead economy, we have not spiraled into a trade war. We have shown that we need to respond with understanding as well as reality. And this is wherein we have focused on our own domestic market so that we are able to rise to the occasion on our own terms. So in this recent statement that has been coming out from PM Modi, he has clearly highlighted that in the times of instability and uncertainty, it is very important when countries are focusing on their own interest, we need to come together in a national movement-like scenario to support all the local products. And he has clearly stated that if India wants to go ahead and become the third largest economy, it is pertinent that for national interest that we awaken the spirit of Swadeshi among people. He has furthermore asked not just the producers, the shopkeepers, the sellers, but also the consumers to focus on the production that is coming from the domestic economy itself. And he has clearly highlighted that mantra for vocal for local should be adopted. That the truest service to the country would be this, that if we are selling the goods made in India and purchasing the goods made in India. Now, this statement might look like a simple speech that has been done by a Prime Minister, but this is not just a speech, a message, but also it is a masterclass in economics as well as a geopolitical punch, counter punch to what is going on across the world, especially that is coming on from US. Now we will be looking into this from three angles. The first, that how is this a economically strategic move? Second, we will be focusing on that how it also sends a very clear political messaging across the nation. And third, how is this a diplomatic messaging as well? So when we talk about the economic angle herein, we have to understand that how is this economic strategy when US President Donald Trump has been trying to put us under pressure using the 25% tariff and the penalty, as well as the fact he has went ahead and called India dead economy. Whereas when we are talking about mocking India's economic status, we see the facts speaking for themselves. This is the IMF presented data based on average GDP growth that we are going to see from 2025 to 30, that India is one of the fastest growing economies. Apart from that, if we will also get to see, you will find that at present, India happens to be the fourth largest economy, and by 2030, it might be standing at the third place. But at the same time, even though the numbers, when such a statement comes from world leaders and it goes around in the global order, it creates an impact. So as to give a response to it, we have been patient about it and very strategically we have responded, wherein we see there has been no direct counter tariff. Because if there would have been a counter tariff, it would have led to a trade war spiral, whereas a classic situation we are seeing between US and China. Rather, when we are focusing on Swadeshi revival, that means we are talking about strengthening our domestic economy. Now, when we'll strengthen our domestic economy, it will directly reduce the external dependence. that we are seeing. So this whole national movement that is being pitched in the name of Swadeshi 2.0 and the push for being vocal for local is a understanding that how that it will increase our domestic internal demand. If our consumption of locally manufactured good is increasing, it will be able to absorb any kind of export shocks that we might have to see. It will also facilitate MSME empowerment, where small manufacturers, artisans, they are being brought into the main economic mainstream by the domestic consumers itself. So even the dependence on the external factors is going to be reduced. And further, there has been a big picture that has been drawn in front of people. The vision has been highlighted that we are going to become the third largest economy. If domestic demand is positioned as the growth engine, then we will be able to reach the third number in the world. So this has been done as an economic move. That means a push to the Indian domestic economy itself. And because of this itself, we will be able to see that there is strengthening of not just manufacturers, which will facilitate more enhanced demand in the domestic economy. It will also help us absorbing the global shocks that come in. It will also help us in understanding that how further we can manage the internal situation itself. So we are looking to make ourselves stronger, that we have a better position when we set up to bargain, when we are talking about trade agreements, or herein when we are looking towards USA, when we are talking about the tariffs that have been imposed. Furthermore, there is also a conversation that we were expecting a free trade agreement with India and US also. But if we are being pressurized and then we have to respond accordingly, in such a situation, we don't want our domestic economy to go in such a palpable state because of the external shocks. So this is something that is being managed economically here. The second factor that you will see, the second dimension of these statements and the push for the national movement of Swadeshi 2.0 comes as a part of political messaging. Because when Donald Trump went ahead and called India and Russia both as dead economy and went against the alliance that we have seen between India and Russia, when we talk in here, we have seen that the same has been supported by leaders of opposition as well. Now, this particular national movement push is basically setting off the counter narrative. Now, what has been set out as an insult in the global order, in the domestic political sphere, we see that that has been converted into a national mission, that we have to become the third largest economy, and for that we really need to focus on enabling our local economy itself. Now, herein PM Modi has also tried to rope in everybody, be it any political party, be it the citizens, be it the manufacturers, shopkeepers, consumers, and that will be the main fulcrum of India's economic strength. So it is like that if we want to become the third largest economy, everybody has to be part of it. So if anybody is saying India is dead economy, they are actually not being part of or not doing their duty to contribute to this particular mission. Furthermore, it has another political messaging where Swadeshi movement, which was Mahatma Gandhi's original, I wouldn't say original herein, because Swadeshi movement is also associated when we talk about 1905 when partition of Bengal took place. But yes, it got a lot of highlight and it is credited to Mahatma Gandhi. It gives a change of perception also, where we see Congress in a different ideology and Bharatiya Janata Party in a different ideology. So this is basically roping in and coming together and linking it to the history, especially of freedom struggle, which makes it like a national mission, just like when we were fighting for independence. So basically it becomes more like a patriot act, or it becomes more of a patriotism feeling that is being tried to instill rather than just a policy. So if it's just a policy, everybody or every citizen might not be able to connect with it, but this is more like a political move also, not just to set a counter narrative against the opposition, but also to link it to the history and bring in the messaging from the original Swadeshi movement itself, where we focused on indigenously made goods and discarded the foreign goods and the external dependence that we used to see on it. And this will directly lead to simple political benefits, like it will neutralize the opposition agenda, the criticism, and it will present everybody with the unifying national cause that the whole country has to get back to the insult that has been done. Furthermore, it is also directly reframing or restructuring the issue. The issue as of now is how do we handle the economy when we are under extreme pressure because of tariffs and penalty, and it is going to affect especially sectors like pharma when we are talking about automobiles, and this whole thing has been restructured towards that it is a domestic opportunity to come from pride and self-assertion. So what was a domestic insult, pressurizing tactic from US? The narrative has been reframed and totally restructured, which also plays a very important factor in the Indian politics as well. Apart from that, the third and the very important angle that we are going to see here is diplomacy. When we talk about diplomacy, we have to understand the diplomatic context of it, that the tariffs come in this particular situation. The penalty part has been labeled by US that it is being done for India because it has been fueling Russia's war economy. But the tariff part, this is a tactic that US is using to pressure India to finally give trade concessions when they are looking for, especially in agriculture, GM foods, and market access that US is asking for its technology as well as pharma. So these are few of the things that India has been very rigid on. India has been taking its stand because this is important for our primary sector. We need to protect it. That is the backbone of our economy for the longest time, and we have stood our ground. So US is trying to use tariff as a pressure to especially get concession in this and budge India from the stand that it has been taking. Now this particular response clearly highlights the fact that we will not respond with any sort of confrontation, but we will be talking about self-sufficiency. That means we are promoting domestic reliance, and we will use that as leverage in the coming negotiations. And any strong domestic market, it's not just about India, it automatically weakens the leverage that any strong diplomatically powerful or otherwise powerful country has. So that remains with India. So if we will have a strong domestic economy, it will weaken US leverage. It has clearly signaled that India will not compromise on the key sectors, especially agriculture, which is related to rural livelihoods and food security. But at the same time, with this strategic restraint, India has kept the gates open for dialogue, and it has not spiraled into any sort of trade wars, and also it has labeled and drawn it red lines ki this is what we want and we want to stand our ground. Now this national movement which has been called for, that is Swadeshi 2.0, this is basically a three-pronged strategy that has been put from multiple dimensions, and this will have a strategic impact where we talk about that it will definitely reduce export vulnerability, it will boost the small manufacturers, it will help citizens, it will bring them together for a particular cause, neutralize the critics for the standing government, and also improve our leverage in trade talks. But if we are talking about these impacts, these are the expected impacts. They should take place. But I want to ask you here, do you really think these are the strategic impacts that we are talking about? They will come into real picture, they would be happening in real time? Because if not, then again we are fueling the fire in a way. Even though we have not responded directly, these indirect conversations, as we are discussing here, they can be understood by other countries as well. So what do you think will be response and where this might end? Now, all these strategies, when we are talking about national movement, Swadeshi 2.0, three-pronged strategy, why it is important? As I mentioned, it has avoided a costly trade war spiral, which Indian economy can definitely not afford. Furthermore, another problem that we are towards becoming the third largest economy, and we have other bigger problems as well to solve. We have hunger, we have certain amount of poverty, we have infrastructural issues. So we would want to spend our money there. Furthermore, it focuses and clearly highlights that India is still going to focus on its economic sovereignty, and we are going to uphold our strategic patience. That means we are not going to come to any sort of compromise under pressure. Now, what do you think about this Swadeshi movement 2.0 and what results can it bring? Please put it down in the comment section. That was all from my side. Thank you so much.